Lewis Hamilton's seat is definitely the biggest one to fill for the 2025 season, and the talks have gotten to the point of potentially bringing back drivers from retirement, with Sebastian Vettel retiring at the age of 36 after driving lastly for Aston Martin. It's safe to assume that he'll be looking closely into Mercedes' priorities, as he wouldn't mind joining the team that was his biggest rival throughout the Ferrari days and winning the 5th championship, which he never got with the Maranello team. But will Mercedes be open to this move? And more importantly, how would that impact their future in terms of car development? It's safe to say that Sebastian Vettel has been prone to the talks of replacing Hamilton, and quite frankly this move makes a lot of sense for both sides. Mercedes is to receive a driver who has 4 championships, 51 race wins and God knows how much experience in building cars and competing up front. On the other hand, Vettel receives a revival chance of his dreams, a team that has the potential to fight for the championship as early as in 2025 and 2026, even though Hamilton's departure might say otherwise for the future of the Brackley-based squad. Vettel has opened up about returning to the sport and has stated firmly that you can never close the door if the right opportunity comes up, and this is what matters most in the entire case of Vettel and Mercedes. This is the right opportunity for the 4-time world champion. One reason why he retired earlier than anticipated and shocked the entire F1 world, causing one of the biggest silly seasons in 2022, is the fact that Aston Martin was not competitive to the level he wanted. Yes, the primary reason was because he wanted to spend more time with his family, but throughout many interviews Vettel said that he doesn't feel the same joy fighting in the back for scrap points as the joy he felt with Red Bull and Ferrari fighting up in the front. This is the ultimatum that Mercedes would be able to fulfill from day one of Vettel's arrival, even though it would be extremely hard to go against Verstappen, who is in a league of his own, and the power duo of Ferrari and McLaren, who would likely be the biggest competitors of the Dutchman. Be that as it may, Vettel has won races in different eras, making him one of the biggest wishes on Mercedes' list. On top of that, he is bringing a massive brand with himself, as it's commonly known that he and Hamilton fought for the same issues that impacted the sport outside of its boundaries, such as global warming and the extinction of bees. Vettel could very well use this in his own favour, making Mercedes his platform to voice his opinion and also revive his F1 career, which would be the best possible scenario for the German. Even though Wolff stated that they are in constant talks and the 4-time world champion is still not ready for a comeback, the news of Hamilton's departure came so quickly, and Vettel might need some more time to think this through. If the Brackley-based squad fails to achieve an agreement with Vettel, then it's very likely that they will go for what seems to be the next most logical solution, which is Carlos Sainz. It is widely known that the Spaniard has a great relationship with Russell, but if they were to share the same car and the same cockpit, then it would be a whole different story. After all, Sainz will have everything to prove in 2024 that he is the right replacement for Hamilton. And now that he doesn't have a contract with the Maranello team for the 2025 season, he needs to put it all out on the track to convince the right people in Brackley and Brixworth. Sainz, however, would have to face a massive challenge in taking over the reign at Mercedes, because with Hamilton's departure and with Russell's time with the Silver Arrows, which would be 3 years of experience before the beginning of the 2025 season, it might not be something that he will be keen to agree to. In terms of pace, he has been outperformed by Leclerc in the 3-year stint with Ferrari, and even though both of them were very close in performance, it was often the Monegasque who got the better end of things from this close duel, and Sainz's story is one that Mercedes might not fall in love with too much. Obviously, he is the driver who has been replaced by Ferrari, and if they were to pick him up, it would effectively mean that they are picking up the driver that their rivals thought was not going to be a great fit for them beyond 2025. Yes, they had Hamilton's offering his service, and there's not many teams out there who would choose Sainz over Hamilton, especially if you ask Mercedes and what the Brit achieved with Mercedes. But after all, this would only give more motivation to the Spaniard. Proving himself is something he's been doing over and over again in his career, and winning 2 races in a Red Bull-dominated era while being in Ferrari definitely speaks enough about where Sainz's knowledge lies. Sainz does give off the vibe of an experienced but yet a driver who has a lot more years on his side, and that is definitely the right mentality with which Mercedes could approach this entire scenario. If Sainz decides to pursue being the number 1 driver in Sauber and Audi, then Mercedes would look at the services of Alex Albon, carrying Williams single-handedly into 7th place in the Constructors' Championship, leaving only 1 point out of a total of 28 to his teammate, Sargent, and fighting in the midfield, is impacting his next career choice to a heavy level. Obviously, Albon is happy with Williams right now, But even he said that denying an offer from a top-notch team like Ferrari, Red Bull or Mercedes would be an almost impossible from his current career stance. Albon still has a massive room for improvement, and his driving alongside Verstappen for nearly 2 full seasons has also given him the opportunity to compete at the front. But just like every other Verstappen teammate, he got his soul crushed by the alpha male that the Dutchman is. And quite frankly, Russell's likewise status is still far away from being achieved in Mercedes, which could be a good opportunity for Albon to prove that he can win races and compete for championships. If Hamilton had the belief that Ferrari actually knows what they're doing with their car and their management from 2025 on, then it's safe to assume that Albon would be working closely on his options with the Brackley-based team. And if he sees that the car could be built more towards what he prefers, then turning down Toto's call would be yet another mission impossible for the Thai driver. And even if he's not the right choice for Mercedes, there are still many candidates that could replace Hamilton, with the difference that they do not bring nearly the same value as the 7-time world champion brought to Mercedes with his appearance and his role outside of the cockpit. Well, we forgot to mention Fernando Alonso, who also has the potential to do the funniest thing ever and cause 2 silly seasons in the last 3 years, as Mercedes has opened up on the dent that Hamilton left in Mercedes and how hard it would be to fulfill by a similar driver of his caliber. Apart from Vettel, Alonso is definitely one of the top choices for the Silver Arrows, and considering the fact that he hasn't lost momentum and has fought up front with Aston Martin from 2022 onwards, he might be even better of an option than bringing Vettel out of retirement. After all, the similarities between Vettel and Alonso are very close, and in 2010 and 2012, the championship fight between these two went on to the last race of the season and potentially in the last laps as well. So it was easily 1 or 2 mistakes in Alonso's favour that could have made him a 3 or 4-time world champion. The qualities he will be bringing to the table are more or less equivalent to the ones that Vettel would bring. And to top that off, Alonso has already expressed his displeasure when it comes to the development of the AMR 24, which is the 2024 version of Aston Martin's car, regarding the steering in the simulator. When it comes to opportunities, the Spaniard is ruthless, and he never misses a chance to capitalise on what seems to be the best for him, which is why he left Alpine for Aston Martin, a move that many mocked back then, but praised once he hit the track in Bahrain and scored a podium in the first race in 2023. This is very likely what he'll be aiming at in Mercedes, the team that desperately needs someone with lots of experience to guide them in 2025 and 2026, when the new regulations take place and when Mercedes plans to actually be quite competitive, considering the fact that the car would depend a lot on the performance of the engine. The last choice that Mercedes has is to promote directly from F2, a move that, while seemingly a bit immature, might give them the next Verstappen, and that is to hire Kimi Antonelli. The young sensational Italian driver has skipped the ranks of F3 to race for the competitive team of Prema in F2, and if he proves his worth, he could easily be considered as the replacement for Hamilton in what would be the most unusual turn of events. Yes, he does not have that much F1 experience. He doesn't have it at all, in fact. But at his age, the sky's the limit, and if you want to produce the next Verstappen of your team, you might as well follow the path that Red Bull has paved for the Dutchman, promoting him to the senior team at the age of 18. Yes, Verstappen had a bit of training in 2014 in Toro Rosso and drove a full season for them in 2015, which enabled Red Bull to receive proper data about his talent. But be that as it may, this is a risk that Mercedes could be willing to take, considering the situation they're in. With this in mind, who do you think would be the right replacement for Hamilton? And more importantly, do you think that Vettel could unhang the racing suit and give Mercedes what they're longing for? Let us know in the comments below.